Welcome back to another episode of Create a New Tomorrow. I'm your host, Ari Gronich. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, comment below so that we can start conversations that create a new tomorrow today. I've got with me Matt Javit, and he is an amazing person, five-time International Sales Award winner, host of Amazon Prime video show World Barbershop Adventures, author of Police, a Brotherhood in Uniform Around the World. He's a culture ambassador. Matt, why don't you tell a little bit more about your story and how you got to this place of being such a success with large multinational as well as starting your own companies?
Yeah, thank you. I guess in that summary, there's a lot of dreaming going on there and living out my dreams. Started off with a humble beginning. My parents got pregnant at an early age, and so my dad had to join the Navy at age 17, and which started my journey around the U.S. as a Navy brat. Get my master's degree down in Texas, where I coached basketball at a junior college, and then started a small company, which brought me back to Indianapolis because Indianapolis was the favorite place for my parents. So when my dad retired from the Navy, they came back to Indy, and it just made sense for me to get back close to my family and running this company with my brother, bartending at night, hustling during the day, and that led into my wife walking in the door one day as I was bartending. I fell in love instantly. Her not so much, but I convinced her that this was a good idea, and we got engaged 8 months later. Got married 8 months after that. Just celebrated 15 years. So I keep telling her it was the right call at that time. And then her father helped me make sense that it wasn't a great idea for me to be a bartender and start my marriage with my wife, which led me into the mortgage industry. Had a great run in the mortgage industry before the recession hit, and then that changed everything. And thank God I was recruited by a technology company to come in and start sales in the technology world, which I knew nothing about. Struggled my tail off for 2 years, but outworked the competition and just really worked hard to understand it better and improve my skills. And then hit a hot streak, which led into me winning 5 international sales awards, working for this amazing global company based out of France. And the coolest thing about working for an international company is when they do their sales incentive awards for the sales folks, they take us to amazing places. And in this case, we had a chance to go to Istanbul, Turkey, Goa, India, Chiang Mai, Thailand, Cape Town, South Africa. And one year they came to Miami, Florida. And on all those trips, when they would take the top 40 sales professionals, we could also bring our wives and our spouses. So Nikki went along with me. February of 2017, a single backpack apiece. We left for a one-way ticket to Santiago, Chile, and spent 27 months traveling to 35 countries around the world, and really just lived out that dream and just had an amazing time doing it. And it was such a blast.
Wow. That's quite an adventurous story. A lot of people are doing that nomadic traveling these days. And it's interesting to me because I believe that the only way to get out of our own heads and our own mindsets is to go see what the heads and mindsets are of other people and to explore their culture and so on. So that's always been an interesting thing to me. Everywhere I've ever gone, the attempt has been to not blend in, but ask a lot of questions about who they are and why they are the way they are. So tell me, what was your most fascinating place on this adventure?
Well, there's a wide range because you look at a place like India, where we spent 2.5 months. We were lucky enough to do it. I had a strong Indian friend base before we left, so I had a chance to reach out and say, "Hey guys, I'm going to be in your country for 2.5 months. Are there any places or friends or people I should see?" And they began inviting us to stay with their friends and family. We attended 3 weddings. We're actually kind of in 3 weddings, so we had a chance to really dive deep into that culture. because we're living in the homes, a lot of quiet time, just talking and hanging out with people. So India, it was an amazing adventure, and anybody that's ever been to into India understands that it's different. It's so much different than America. So it really opens up all your senses. To be driving down the road, I was on the back of a motorcycle on one situation with my buddy, and he just says, "Hey Matt, do you want to get fish for dinner?" I was like, "Yeah, that sounds cool." So he just pulls off, and there's a guy clubbing fresh fish that they just caught from a lake, skinning them and cutting them up, put them in a bag for you to take home, and that was dinner for the night. So things like that, where it's sensory overload on a regular basis, and you're really just getting to have a chance to just see things differently and just understand their culture a bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take the car with you, you can't take the house with you, you can't take any of those items with you, but you can take your memories with you and your experience.
Absolutely.
And we've gotten as a culture away from traveling because we've decided to create a lifestyle that is 40 to 80 hours a week of working, and both partners working typically. Um, so there's no time in that scenario for these journeys and trips. And I think the US is on average 2 weeks a year of vacation,
Yeah.
while the rest of the world is more like a month to 2 months a year of vacation time. And so
Yep.
how is it that we get Americans to start traveling again? And I know it's weird to say it in this particular time period where everything is shut down.
Yeah.
But how do we get people exploring other people's cultures in a way that moves our culture forward as well? So, you know, um, I remember hearing a story about somebody who went to another culture. So he went to France and was expecting the French to speak English, and was really upset that they weren't speaking English to him, and that they didn't like him because he was expecting them to speak English to them. And I found it interesting to, you know, I think that that's probably happens quite a lot, that we want the others, the people and the other places that should only exist for our benefit to to uh to conform to the way that we are, rather than looking at and appreciating and understanding that culture and finding the beauty in other people's cultures. Is that something that
Oh, we saw it, brother. Yeah, it's one of the most annoying things you can see on travel, and it's for those people that think that way. It's like, why go there if you want the same thing you're experiencing at home? Why even go introduce yourself to another culture if you're gonna require people to act like they do in Des Moines, Iowa, or wherever you're from? You want to become and understand that you go to a Greek dinner. Yeah, they're not going to clear the plates off for 3 hours, and you're going to sit there with dirty plates on your table while you have a long conversation over coffee. You know what I mean? And that's the coolest thing about it, is you get to see like, wow, they're in no rush to kick us out here. Where in America, they're trying to flip the table to have somebody else sit in. They're okay with only having a certain amount of people in this restaurant at night, and they're not trying to get people in and out because they want you to enjoy the dinner and have a long conversation.
Yeah. So, what do you think of tourist zones versus the places that the locals, go? I mean, if everywhere I go, anytime I've ever been anywhere, my first thing is I do not want to be where the tourists go. I want to be where the locals go, and so seek out specifically somebody who can take me to a local joint or a local
Yeah.
place so that I can experience that local culture. But a lot of Americans, I call it the McDonald's tour, because we go from a McDonald's in France to a McDonald's in Europe to a McDonald's in Israel.
Yeah.
Like how many different ways can we experience the McDonald's, right? And
Yeah.
and we do that with more than just we'll go to the Hilton. Well, there's a lot of local kind of hotels that are completely different than, say, a Hilton. And I'm not, it could be any of the major chains, but we tend to go to the places that we know in our
Hmm.
minds. How do you think we can inspire people to experience more of the local kinds of experiences rather than the tourist experiences that we've kind of set up?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the first thing is the fear, because that was the biggest thing people would ask us as we were making this trip. Are you safe? Is everything okay? And it's like, man, look in the mirror a little bit. How safe is your city? How safe is Chicago? You know what I mean? How safe is St. Louis? How safe is New York? So that safety barrier is always the thing that keeps them on resorts and keeps people in those four walls wherever they are in the foreign country. And for me, it's like you can get through that and not listen to what all the media is trying to tell you. Because mostly what we hear from the media is when something bad happens, a tsunami hits an island, there's some sort of revolt against the government. So we're only hearing like the negative stuff around the world that happens that mainstream media wants to put out there because it'll get the clicks and views that all negative news gets. And so if you can like climb through all that and try to find the truth in what's going on in these places around the world, you're going to see a lot of beauty and a lot of amazing things happening outside of those resorts. And one of the coolest things that happened to me recently was one of my buddies that watched our journey from afar online. Um, he would listen to the advice that I would give about getting out of the resorts and spending time with the locals. And he said they recently went to Jamaica, and he said, "Man, we had an awesome trip down there. We spent almost 2 weeks down there." He said, "But our favorite day by far is when we left the resort, went to a local town, and hung out with the locals, ate at the local restaurants." He said we came back with a bunch of phone numbers, and they're still texting us, and it was by far the best day. He said, "Thank you so much for that advice, because it's going to change the way that we travel now going forward." And it's things like that that are like, yeah, if you can see a beach coastline anywhere around the world, and you wouldn't know if you were in Thailand, if you were in the Philippines, if you were in Peru, if you just saw the waves coming in at a gorgeous Hilton resort like you're describing, you wouldn't know where you were. But it's when you get out of that place and you go walk around the town and you meet the locals and you shop at their markets, you see the things that they're eating on a regular basis, how they barter. The idea that America doesn't barter for anything, and these places everywhere else barters. So just that conversation of bartering, if they say it's $1, say I'll give you 80 cents, and just go through that process. You're going to learn so much about these places and really just fall in love with them even more than just sitting in a hotel or just drinking.
Cool. Yeah. You know, part of me thinks that racism is not just ignorant of people, but it's a lack of understanding of other, any kind of other, right? Whether that's an other culture, another language, another colored, color of a person, and it's based solely on fear versus knowledge. Because if you get to know somebody or know about their culture, it's really difficult, I've found, to dislike those people. Now you've been in place where, like Turkey, where there is, in that Middle Eastern zone, a lot of conflict. And the conflict that we hear about was not my experience when I was in Israel, for instance, or I went to Jordan and Lebanon. I didn't experience the same kind of difference that we see on the news. I don't know if you went there. I know you went to Turkey, but any chance that the differences between the people are not as great as the governments and the agendas and the media want you to think?
Absolutely. I think racism is just lack of exposure. Um, and we saw and had conversations about racism all around the world. And it was when we were in Chile, they hated the Peruvians and Argentinians. Then we were in Peru, they hated the Colombians, and it's and the Chileans. And then you're in South Africa as a white guy at the grocery store. The black checkout lady is looking at us a different way until we speak, and then they understand we're American. They're like, "Whoa, you're not the same white guy that's usually here." So they're nicer. We experienced it everywhere, and it's one of those things where if you don't have exposure to a lot of the people in the frame of reference is one or two people, you're going to think about those one or two people. And that's why it was so important for me wherever we went was to be the smiling nicest guy in the room, because I never knew if I was going to be the last white American that they met.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. If you could leave everybody with one thought, one final thought, that is what you'd like, all of these experiences that you've culminated together, one thought that you'd like the audience members to get, what would that one thought be?
I would say that it's okay to want to live out your dreams, and it's okay to dream big and then want to work through it and make it happen. Before we took this big adventure, there was no way I could live this out. I'd made every excuse in my mind why it just wasn't for me. And then finally it clicked to say like, hey, I can do this too. And I'm sure there's a listener out there that's saying they've been dreaming about this for a while and thinking it's not possible for them. But I promise you, you can do it. We did it. And now I've got other dreams that I'm working on, and it's possible for you to do it as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I know that the audience members have gotten a lot from this. And this is your host, Ari Gronich, with another episode of Create a New Tomorrow. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, comment below so that we can start conversations that change the world, create a new tomorrow today, and activate our vision for a better world. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And we're